You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to or during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
When the wolf is at your door, you're running over, that's for sure. He already knows all about you. Cut you down, no matter by you. Now you better walk the line. Real life, real
Warning. This episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast, may contain descriptions of acts of violence or that of a sexual nature and should be for people that are 18 years or older. Heed my warning, people. I do not get the facts of these cases off of the internet or from some television show. The facts I'm retelling you were presented to me by the victims of the crimes or the perpetrators who committed the crimes against the victims. My descriptions of the crime scenes, what I saw with my own two eyes. If you're going to get offended, please turn this podcast off now. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. As always, I'm your host, Woody Overton. And today we're going to be continuing the state versus Scott Peterson on Scorched, right? And I've been telling y'all all along as we take this deep dive into the information that you can't get on the documentaries, etc., what's Scorched on both sides, right? And again, if this case wasn't Scorched, we wouldn't be talking about it 20 years later, right? But it is what it is, and I'm going to tell you about it from both sides. But I want to thank y'all all for liking and listening and sharing, and just love you to death. Lifers are the best fans in the world. Big change is coming November 1, and we'll tell you about that as we get closer to it. But when I left off, we were in the trial, right? And Sharon had just testified, Laci's mom. And now we're going back to Tuesday, the 8th of June of 2004. And the next witness is called by the prosecution, and it's Ron Gransky, who's Sharon's, I guess, husband now. They call him, in the court documents, they call him Sharon's companion. So Ron Gransky was fishing on the same day, on December the 24th, and the same day that Laci went missing, y'all. And he said it was a last minute thing, and he didn't tell anyone he was going. Well, that kind of fits in with Scott, right? But not really. He wasn't fishing in the bay in a 14-foot boat. He was on Lake Almanar, and he had gone to Lodi to pick up his paycheck, and then he went to Los Baños to check on a shopping center project that he was working on. It was near completion. And then he went fishing at Oakdale when he learned Sharon was going to the movies. And Ron admitted that Scott could have been offended by what he asked him in the driveway at the house on the 24th about being so late to go fishing, right? So Ron also said that he went to the park and then went to the Covina house by going through the park and up the footpath, the same one that Laci would have been, the same park, y'all, around Laci's house. He said it was too steep and no way Laci could have gotten up that path. He said he had trouble with it and he's not in that bad of shape. And He said the meeting with the police on January 15th and showing them the pictures of Scott and Amber, he said that was the last straw. And he was then convinced that Scott was involved, right? So, and then he said, I'm looking at this whole situation and kind of a little bit suspicious from the beginning. There were other straws that led up to him being convinced that Scott had something to do with Laci's disappearance. And he says that up from the 24th up until January 15th, Scott had been avoiding him. He said police met with them on January 15th, and on the 16th, they provided Sharon with the tape recording equipment from Radio Shack and to record any of Scott's calls, right? And guess what? Scott called that same day. And Ron told Scott, if you have anything to do with this, you better tell. And Scott said, my world is done without Laci and my child. We all want her back. I'm sorry you guys think I had something to do with it. The only important thing is getting her back. Well, what else is he going to say, y'all? I guess he was thinking that they were going to continue to support him. Well, fuck, everybody in the world knows about Amber Fry now. So anyway, there's a whole lot of phone calls between them that don't really amount to much. And Ron said that Scott was a very non-emotional person, that he never lost his temper. He never got angry, but he was extremely emotional on more than one occasion after Laci disappeared. Now, Geragos, Scott's attorney, asked Ron about the fishing places he went to, and they were private and secluded because a fisherman like Ron doesn't want others to know his fishing spot. Well, that's kind of the same way I am. But Geragos asked if someone was going to dump a body, wouldn't he pick some place secluded and private rather than a public place like the Berkeley Marina with boats and people around? And Ron didn't even respond to that on the stand, right? So moving on. They get done with Ron. And then the prosecution's witness number 10 is Brent Rocha, who is Laci's brother I told y'all about. Now, Brent was the co-trustee of the grandfather Rocha's two estates, with Dennis' sister Robin being the other trustee. Now, he testified that the house sold for approximately $485,000, and Laci's 1/3 share was $160,000. The other state was a lot bigger, y'all, and the total value was $2,367,000, and it was divided 50-50 between Dennis and his sister Robin. Now, Dennis' one half was set up in the Dennis Rocha Family Trust, with Brent, Amy, and Laci getting equal shares, but she wouldn't get the money until she turned age 30. So there would be no benefit. It would be no benefit to Scott without Laci and Connor being there, right? I mean, Scott wouldn't get to see any of the money, et cetera, until Laci turned 30. Now, if Connor had lived, Scott, as Connor's guardian, would have overseen Connor's share. Now, meaning if Connor lived and Laci was dead. With both Connor and Laci dead, Laci's shares got divided equally between Amy and Brent. Brent disagreed with Geragos on the value of the jewelry that Laci inherited, and he said it was worth at most $20,000, not enough to take out an insurance policy on it. And Jackie and Lee Peterson set Scott up in the packaging and shipping business, which he sold and used the profits to set up the Shack, which is that sport spa I told y'all about that they had and sold before they moved to Modesto. And Brent described how he and Rose, his wife, wondered how Scott and Laci could afford their lifestyle. They were buying a home and they had newer vehicles, and Scott had had expensive liquors in his bar, etc., right? And while Brent and Rose were scraping just enough money to buy a home. And Jackie and Lee put up the down payment for the Covina home, which, again, that's Laci and Scott's home. During one conversation with Scott at the Covina house by the pool, Scott said things weren't going good at work, and he was interviewing more people, and he had hoped they would be better salespeople. He remarked about turning 30 and becoming a dad. And Brent said when he was doing that, he was kind of talking quiet and like he was emotionally down, kind of like upset. So on the 24th, Brent, naturally, he goes to Scott and Laci's house. That it was actually on the night of 24th. He said Scott was staring straight ahead, not looking at anyone. He was just staring in outer space and not making eye contact with anyone, and he just sat by himself. Now, Brent also was given tape recording equipment by the Modesto Police Department in mid-January, and they asked him to record his conversations with Scott. Now, one of the conversations he taped was a call on January 16th, and when Brent confronted Scott about Amber, Scott first denied it, then admitted it after the National Enquirer article came out. And he asked Scott, "How do you know she has nothing to do with it?" Scott said, No way. She couldn't have anything to do with it. She didn't know Laci existed." And Brent asked, "How do you know she didn't know Laci existed?" Now, he's talking about, how do you know Amber Fry didn't kill Laci so you could be together, right? And Scott said, "I didn't tell her anything about Laci until after Laci went missing." And he said he had to call Amber to tell her that Laci was missing, okay? And on the 25th, Scott went to the warehouse to get duct tape to use to put up flyers. And Brent said he was gone for about 2 hours, and the distance is only 10 miles. So that's a long ass time to go get some duct tape, right? Brent said they both used the duct tape to put up the flyers in the neighborhood. At a later date, the police asked Brent to show him the locations where Scott used the duct tape to put up the flyers. But I guess y'all are going to try to match the tape if it ever came up later on. And Garagos on redirect asked Brent about how much work Scott had done to the house. And Brent said it was already in pretty good shape, but he conceded that the pool, the jacuzzi, and the barbecue were put in afterwards, as well as some remodeling they did on the bathrooms and the floors. All right, so what y'all is they're going through, and the prosecution is just, again, trying to lay these bricks, right? And Garagos is trying to tear them down. So the prosecution calls witness number 11, who is Rose Marie Rocha, who is Brent's wife. Rose said that Scott made a comment to her about Laci's efforts to get pregnant, that he was hoping for infertility, right? He didn't want a kid. She said he wasn't smiling, he wasn't laughing, so she didn't know how to read into what he said, right? Now, Garagos in the defense countered with Rose's awareness that it took both Laci and Scott and mentioned it about them using the ovulation, calculator thing, so they would know the best time or the best chance that they had to get pregnant, right? Pat Harris also asked her about Brent's comments to the media that Scott was excited about having the baby, but she didn't remember hearing any of them. And Rose was first interviewed by Detective Grogan on January 11th, but she didn't say anything about the infertility comment, though she was asked about his relationship with Laci. And that was before the whole world found out about Amber Fry, y'all. And then she was interviewed again on January 21st, and then she told Detective Grogan about the comment about the infertility in the ovulation calculator. And on the 11th, she was also asked about Brent's whereabouts on the 23rd and 24th of December. And then Rose also testified about Scott giving the 10-minute speech at hers and Brent's wedding. And Pat Harris asked her if it was televised to 60 million people. She said no, it was just a video for family and friends, and only about 100 people at the wedding. So what they're doing here, y'all, that remember Scott pretty much hid from the cameras. He never gave an interview at the press conferences, etc. And of course, that's strange as fuck, right? That's Scorched really on his part. And we know now that he didn't want Amber Fry to see his face on the camera, but the defense is trying to say that Scott's really just shy. And, yeah, he gave a great speech at your wedding, but, he wasn't giving it to the whole world. So neither here nor there, I guess. Then the prosecution goes to witness number 12, Sandy Ricard, who is Sharon's best friend, Laci's mom's best friend. Now, Ricard said that when she was at Scott and Laci's house on the night of the 24th, Scott went up to her, held up his hand, and said, "I wouldn't be surprised if they find blood on my truck because I cut my hands all the time. He used some sport, but she couldn't remember which. And however, the first time she was interviewed by Detective Grogan, she hadn't reported that comment. She didn't remember it. And Sandy described Sharon as hysterical on the night of the 24th and Scott as calm. And sometime later, the night before Diane Sawyer interviewed Scott, the night before the interview aired, she and Sharon and two other women were sitting around trying to remember things about Scott. And that was the first time that Sharon remembered about Scott using the word missing in quotations. Sharon called Detective Grogan. Then Sandy talked to Detective Grogan and about the previous to Sharon's phone call. Another lady there, Patty, had called Detective Grogan to tell him about a rumor that Laci was afraid of Scott because he was making concrete weights. She said she wasn't aware of Patty making that call, and she was sitting at the table with her and Sharon. Also, when Sharon placed the call to Detective Grogan, she went to another room, so Sandy didn't get to hear everything that was said, right? Again, they're trying to build these bricks to stick with me. So she gets off the stand. Prosecution calls witness number 13, who is a Gwendolyn May Kemple, who is Sharon's first cousin. Now, Kemple and her husband, Harvey, were hosting a dinner party for about 15 to 20 people when Ron called about 6:30 to ask for their help. And remember, Laci's missing now. This is on the 24th. She talked to Scott a couple times, asking him what Laci was wearing, what she was doing, and where he was. And he told her she was wearing black pants, a white long sleeve top, and tennis shoes. She asked if those clothing items were in the house, and he said he didn't know. She asked if Laci had on a jacket. He said he didn't know. She asked, "Do you know if she has a jacket that's missing?" And Scott said, "No, I don't know." And Kemple said Scott wouldn't look at her. He just answered the questions matter-of-factly. And this was around 10 to 10:30 p.m. on the same night on the 24th when Laci went missing. Now, she sees Scott again the next day at 8:30 a.m. at the house. And Scott was in the kitchen standing around for hours from like 8:30 to 11:30. And he talked on the phone to his dad. And, I guess, why ain't you out looking for your wife? I don't know, y'all, but it doesn't look good. But back in November of 2002, Laci had been tutoring her grandson, TJ, and she spoke to Scott, telling him he needed to get ready for the job he had to do, preferring to being a dad to Connor. She asked him if he was going to teach Connor to play football. Scott said no. She said, "Baseball?" He said no. And she said he told her he had friends that would do that. Kind of weird. I guess neither here nor there. So we move on to the next day of the trial, Wednesday, the 9th of June of 2004. And the prosecution recalls Gwendolyn May Kemple, Sharon's first cousin I told you about. Hey, y'all, let me tell you about Gobble. All Gobble meal kits are pre-prepped. That means less work for you and less waste in your kitchen. Their meal kits include everything you need so you can save time at the store or just skip that trip entirely. I got the box in and I had 3 different meals. I had a Kung Pao chicken, crispy fish tacos, and a beef bourguignon, however you say it. But let me tell you about the classic beef bourguignon. Look, it came with beef pot roast and a beef broth concentrate, red wine demi-glaze, cremini mushrooms, cipollone onions, mashed potatoes, baby carrots, and rosemary thyme butter. It was so easy to make. Literally like 15 minutes it took Cindy. And let me tell you something, all the dishes were fire, but this thing was like a taste explosion in my mouth. It's just unreal. We've got to spend more time together and more time doing the things we love because everything came in this one single box right to my door. So see what a difference Gobble will make for your household. Right now, they're offering my listeners a fantastic limited time deal. You get $120 off across 4 boxes plus free shipping and free cookies. And let me tell you, those cookies, I ate one that was sin baked and it was delicious. Go to gobble.com/real life. That's GOBBLE.com/real life for $120 off your first 4 boxes. This offer is not available on the home site, so don't miss out. This is genius. It's taste explosions in your mouth like you never had. Spark something uncommon this holiday with just the right gift from Uncommon Goods. The busy holiday season is here, and Uncommon Goods makes it less stressful with incredible hand-picked gifts for everyone on your list, all in one spot. Gifts that spark joy, wonder, delight, and that's exactly what I wanted feeling. Hey, y'all, I ordered a super cool piece. It's a candle with a sculpture of LSU's Tiger Stadium on top of it. And each officially licensed laser cut wooden replica features up to 4 layers of detail, creating a bird's eye view of a specific football field, seating section, and more. And every label includes your stadium's name, the team's logo, and school location. And it has a coconut, soy, vegan wax infused with sandalwood smell that creates tailgates and touchdowns scent profile, reminiscent of game day. It's invigorating like fresh cut grass and nostalgic like smoke from a pre-game grill, and calming like the crisp autumn air of a new semester on campus. Y'all, I love it. I have it at the base of my TV, and I'm ready to watch the Tigers play on Saturday night, right? Uncommon Goods. Look, when you shop at Uncommon Goods, you're supporting artists and small independent businesses. And many of their handcrafted products are made in small batches. So shop now before they sell out this holiday season. Uncommon Goods looks for products that are high quality, unique, and often handmade or made in the U.S. They have the most meaningful, out of the ordinary gifts anywhere. They even have gifts you can personalize. From holiday hosts and hostess gift to the coolest finds for kids to hits for everyone from the book lovers to diehard sports fans. Uncommon Goods has something for everyone, not the same old selections you can just find anywhere. And with every purchase you make at Uncommon Goods, they give $1 to a nonprofit partner of your choice. They've donated more than $3 million to date. So to get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/RLRC. That's uncommongoods.com/RLRC for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods, we're all out of the ordinary. And Mark Geragos gets up on the cross-examination, and she said that Ron Gransky called their house about 6:30 p.m. on the 24th, and she and her husband, Harvey, went immediately to the park. And the next morning, she was at the Peterson home from about 8:30 to 11:30, and she said, again, that Scott was just standing around and going in and out, but he was not participating in the search. And she didn't see Scott leave with Brent. Now, Geragos asked her to read from Detective Grogan's report, and The report stated that she was at the house from 9 to 11:30 in the morning, and that Scott and Sharon were both present in the house at the time, and that Scott never left the house. She said that try to explain herself. She said that she meant Scott did not leave the premises. She said that she was in the park that morning, and then she corrected herself. All right. She did not make this information known until May the 1st of 2003, when she called Detective Grogan at Sharon Rocha's suggestion. So kind of score one for if you're building or tearing down the bricks, Garagos kind of scores one on there, because maybe to just try to discount this lady's testimony, right? Or about anything she saw on Scott. So, she gets down. The prosecution calls witness number 14, Harvey Kemple, who is Gwen Kemple's husband. Now, he says that after Scott installed the barbecue at their house, Kemple was there, and Scott was barbecuing chicken. And Kemple told him to turn the fire down, but Scott didn't, and the chicken burned. He says Scott was more upset about the burnt chicken than he was that Laci was missing. He says Scott slammed down the lid on the barbecue. And when the defense attorney Harris on redirect says, hey, there wasn't a lid on the barbecue, Harvey Kemple said, oh yeah, there was. So Kemple said on the night of the 24th, he went to the park first, and he met Sharon and Sandy at the tennis courts. And then he walked westward towards the house. And he said he had trouble with the footpath leading out to the park to Covina, and he could barely make it up the hill because of his boots. His boots had smooth soles. Now, at the house, he tried to get Scott's attention, but Scott was talking on his cell phone. And he finally got his attention, and he asked Scott what Laci was wearing and where she went to. Later, he asked Scott where he was, and Scott said he was golfing, y'all. Golfing. What's the one thing that never changes? The truth, right? So Kemple tells everybody that he saw that Scott said he went golfing, and he said he couldn't believe Scott would leave Laci to walk alone in the park and go golfing, much less fishing. But that he didn't tell him he went fishing, right? Because he fucking forgot. He goes on to say, he said he was upset with Scott because Scott wasn't out searching for Laci that night. And when asked if he knew that the police ordered Scott to stay at the house, he said he wouldn't have cared what the police said. He said he was suspicious of Scott that night because Scott seemed to be trying to keep the police out of his house. He said if it was him, he would have had the police turn the house, the cars, and the warehouse upside down to find Laci. And when the defense attorney Harris asked if he was aware that Scott let the police search the house and the truck in the warehouse, he said, no, I didn't see that. And when he asked him if he would change his opinion, he said no. And defense attorney Harris suggested that once he learned about Amber, nothing would have changed his mind. He replied, he said it wasn't just that. He said there were other things, right? Kemple said he followed Scott one day from the volunteer center, and Scott went to the mall and just parked in the parking lot for about 45 minutes, y'all. Right? Everybody else in the world's out looking for your wife, and you go into the mall and just sit in your car. Well, I bet you was on the phone with Amber. But he was asked if he thought it was strange behavior, and he said, yeah. And when asked if his own behavior in following Scott was strange, he said, yeah. And the courtroom busted out and laughed, y'all. I mean, at least Kemple's being honest, right? Kemple also followed Scott one day to the Del Rio Country Club and saw Scott go in. He said some people told him personally that Scott was there to golf. And Kemple continued to search for Laci till the day she was found, doing his own searches. And he wasn't interviewed by the police until June, and that was to find out about the burnt chicken, not about Scott saying that he was golfing on the 24th. That's pretty crazy. Now, so he's the one that Scott told, yeah, I was golfing, right? Not true. So the prosecution calls witness number 15, Karen Servas, who's Peterson's neighbor, right? And the SASIO reviewed with her, finding Mac and putting him in the backyard. Talking about Mackenzie, the dog, y'all. She gave the time as no later than 10:18 a.m. And that's the same thing she said in the preliminary hearing. She added one element, though, however, and that is that when she returned home about 11:45, she saw the package sticking out of their mailbox. And on this day, she said that the leash was very muddy with grass clippings and stuff whenever she put Mackenzie back up. She said the lawns were wet with dew, but Mackenzie's coat was dry in what she calls a Mac. She said when she saw Mac, she was parallel to the curb in her car with her car facing south. Now, the path to the park is to the north, y'all. And she said that Mac was facing south with his butt facing north. Now, Geragos asked her if he could have been coming from the park, and she said he was standing still. She said the gate she went through was wide open at least a 90-degree angle. All right. Now, this during a cross-examination, y'all, they kind of go off on, right? And she did not say she saw the package at 11:45 in the initial preliminary hearing. And she argued that it was because no one asked her that question. And Geragos referred to her several times to his questions from the preliminary hearing, but she insisted he never asked about the morning, only about when she left that evening. And look, they go back and Geragos is trying to mix her up and trying to tear her up, and she's not backing down. And they went at it for a while, but she was steadfast to the fact that she was not asked about seeing the package that morning and only that afternoon. And she said that the mail is delivered between 10:30 and 11. So she didn't back down, and good for her. Now, Servas, she's a single mom. She's in New Mexico. She was in New Mexico when Scott called asking if she was sure about the time she found Mackenzie. And Geragos asked her if she was a member of the Rotary and did she know that Scott was a member. She said she was, and he had been a member for a while, but she wasn't there during an incident Geragos asked her about when Scott brought Laci and introduced her and the unborn baby Connor to the Rotary Club. So he's trying to make Scott out to be the good guy and all that, right? Last time, Servas says last time she saw Laci was on December the 22nd in the afternoon, and she went over to ask Scott to come and help her straighten out her Christmas tree. She said they were mowing the lawn together, him doing the mowing, and when she went over, they were already in the backyard transplanting some perennials, plants, doing garden shit. She said Scott was doing the work and Laci was giving the instructions. She said Laci did a lot of the work around the yard. And Laci told her about an incident a few weeks earlier when she almost fell into the pool because she felt teetery and off balance due to the pregnancy, y'all. And she said she didn't hear any unusual noises on the night of the 23rd or the morning of the 24th when Laci went missing. All right. Moving along. The prosecution's witness number 16 is William Alston, who is the owner of Alston's Christmas store. Now, the attorney Harris laid the foundation for Alston's ownership of the Christmas store that Karen Servas shopped at on the morning of December 24th. The Christmas store is a seasonal extension of Alston's patio furniture store in Modesto. He explained how the time is set on the cash register is used only for the Christmas store, and he verified the receipt that Servas received. The People's Exhibit 28 dated December 24, 2002 at 10:34 a.m. Now, Alston said that he doesn't set the time on the cash register, but an employee does by calling for the time and synchronizing the register. The defense attorney Geragos introduced 2 no sales receipt made in January 2004 to show that the cash register does not accurately record time, right? Because if she had been there at that time, her story sticks, right, as to what time she saw Mackenzie. So that witness is dismissed. The prosecution calls witness number 18, Tara Venable, who is also the Scott and Laci's neighbor. So both Amy Kerbaum and Terry Venable said that Scott told Amy he had been golfing on the 24th, right? So it's another one he tells he's been golfing, not fishing. However, their testimony that Scott was distraught and in shock did much to undermine Harvey Kimple's testimony that Scott showed no emotion on the 24th. Now, Amy confirmed the time Scott said he arrived home from fishing. She said she left home to do an errand around 4:30-ish, and Scott's pickup was not in the drive. And when she returned home around 4:45, Scott's pickup truck was there. And Scott said he returned home about 4:30, 4:45. Amy also said the Christmas tree lights on the Petersons' home, in the Petersons' home, came on at 4:30 p.m. Well, bro, that is fucked up. If you did that to your wife and just dumped her in the bay, you're going to come home. Not only, he said he ate pizza and did whatever, took a shower, but you even turned the Christmas tree lights on. All right, she's dismissed. Prosecution calls witness number 19, Susan Aquino, who is Laci's maternal aunt. Now, Aquino and her husband were over at Scott's on December the 25th between 12 and 1 p.m. And Sharon wasn't there. Brent wasn't there, but some other people were there, but she didn't know who they were. She and her husband were sitting in the chairs in the middle of the living room, and 2 police officers came to the door and told Scott that they found 2 witnesses who said they saw Laci in the park on the 24th near one of the footbridges. She was excited and asked Scott what he thought after the police officers left, and Scott said, "That wasn't Laci. She doesn't go that way." So Geragos gets up and tries to tear her apart, right? And tries, to discredit her statements. And anyway, she was saying that on the 24th, when she met the 25th, that was the first thing he threw shade on. And then Geragos was asking her about on the 24th, she was at Scott's house and she was getting mad at Geragos. The judge actually had to intervene to calm her down and straighten out that she meant the 25th, Christmas Day, when the officers came to the door. And this lady's pissed off, right? They said she had a disgusted look on her face and when she was dismissed and as she walked out. But Geragos, the defense attorney, had established that only she and her husband heard Scott say that. He said, interesting, when she was saying she hardly knew the people at the house, she said, "I hardly know those people. I hardly know Scott." So again, Geragos does actually a pretty good job. That's a very damning statement. He says, no, Laci doesn't even go that way in his reaction and all that. But Geragos does a pretty good job. Throws shade on that brick too. So she's dismissed. She's all pissed off. A little bit of fireworks in the courtroom, and the prosecution calls the next witness, number 20, who is Russell Graybill, who is the Petersons' mailman, right? So Graybill delivered the mail to the Petersons, and he says he delivered the mail to the Peterson house between 10:35 and 10:50. And he said he never delivers it if Mackenzie is in the front yard, right? Mailmen getting their ass tore up by dogs. But he said Mackenzie was not around, and he delivered the mail without a problem. I mean, no Mackenzie trying to tear that ass. And he said he doesn't remember what he delivered. Well, who the fuck would? It's Christmas Eve, right? I mean, you know how many packages they're delivering. But he assumed the delivery time based on the 1019 scan for his first stop on Encina. So he's pacing it out, right? Dismissing. Prosecution calls witness number 21, Susan Medina, who is a Peterson's neighbor. Now, Medina confirmed that they left their house at 10:33 on December 24th, and her mail was not yet delivered. She didn't notice anything unusual that morning, but did note both the Land Rover and Scott's pickup were in the Petersons' driveway at 5 a.m. She said when they got home on the 26th, they discovered the burglary. Now, this is the big Scorched, y'all, right? Said their dolly was in the front yard, probably used by the burglars to haul out the safe. Their kids' rooms were ransacked. The kids are grown and had already moved away from home. Said their shed was broken into and a hammer and a leather glove was taken. All right. On the 10th of December, Medina had a flat tire and Scott took her to her appointment. And when Scott came over with his defense investigator and they wanted her to release the safe to the investigative team, Scott was crying and really upset. And this was a long time after Laci's disappearance, but before he was arrested. And Medina would see homeless transients between 5 a.m. and 10 a.m. coming from the park, and in the evening they would return to the park to sleep. And sometimes they gave her problems by looking through her trash, I guess for food. But on the morning of December the 24th, she didn't remember seeing any homeless people, y'all. That's huge, right? So Medina was talking about the media being there for several months and that the media did not die down. And they made Scott's life a wreck for months. And she said she observed that he was going back into his house within the next few months. And one time she saw someone stealing bricks from his house. Okay. Well, y'all, there you have it. As far as, the safe went missing between the time she left. Laci's still at home. Her house got robbed. It had to be on the morning of the 24th. It can't be later, like the prosecution is saying, and that is scorched as fuck. That is in that tape coming up missing, the jailhouse phone call and all that stuff. The Garagos is doing a fantastic job of laying the groundwork for it being the burglars who Laci confronted, and ultimately that his idea that she was abducted by them. All right, so she's dismissed. Prosecution calls witness number 22, Brian Durfelt from the Modesto Police Department. Now, Durfelt arrived at the park about 6:15 as the other three officers, Evers, Spurlock, and Letzinger, were leaving to go to Scott Peterson's house. And he said he was there for about 5 minutes and he decided to go to Scott's house also. And someone asked him for a ride from the park. He said it was a jogger, and he took the jogger somewhere and then went to the house and met the other officers there. Now, Durfelt arrived just as Evers and Letzinger and Spurlock were concluding their initial walkthrough. He joined the three officers inside the house near the front door. And after a very brief 5-minute discussion, Durfelt decided to call a homicide detective. And he admitted, this is very unusual that I did this. He then ordered officers to search the vacant house next door, then back to search the park. And he was the only one left at the Peterson residence. Hey, y'all, changing my wardrobe from summer to fall, it's never easy. Luckily, Quince, offers timeless and high-quality items I adore, ensure my wardrobe stays fresh and I don't blow my budget. And there's nothing easier than going to Quince and choosing these high-quality items, like cashmere sweaters from $50, pants for every occasion, washable silk tops, and so much more. The best part? All Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. By partnering directly with top factories, Quince cuts out the cost of the middleman and passes the savings on to us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes, and I love that. I got the stainless steel Link Apple Watch band for $59.90. It's heavy duty, it's awesome, and it's like $100 less than I could find anywhere else. And I also got a 100% organic cotton fisherman quarter zip up sweater. The color is alabaster. Man, I can't wait to wear that this fall. And Cindy got the Mongolian cashmere boat neck sweater in heather gray. And I'm telling you, these are classic pieces at a fraction of the price. Make switching seasons a breeze with Quince's high-quality closet essentials. Go to quince.com/RLRC for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/RLRC to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/RLRC. You'll thank me later. Hey, ladies, are you feeling overwhelmed by hormonal changes? Well, you're definitely not alone. There are more than 1,000 hormone disruptors living in our environment right now. It's in your food, your water, the air you breathe, the clothes you wear, your skincare products. They all mess with your hormones. Then there's the natural hormone changes your body goes through, premenopause, menopause. And while it's a natural process, it doesn't mean you have to suffer through it. The good news is you don't have to suffer through it anymore, because now you have Hormone Harmony, a formula made only with herbal ingredients that are shown to reduce hormonal symptoms in women of all ages. Hormone Harmony is not just a hormone support and supplement. It's become a phenomenon. Women can't stop talking about it on social media. A bottle of Hormone Harmony is sold every 24 seconds. And the biggest benefit? Well, my wife says it makes her feel like her own self again. And that's what women mention over and over in the reviews. And there are over 30,000 reviews for Hormone Harmony. And for a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use code RLRC at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use code RLRC for 15% off today. That's happymammoth.com and use code RLRC. He called Detective Brocchini, who was in the foothills, and he said Brocchini arrived around 10 p.m. And Durfeld said at that time, Scott was in the front of the house, and the situation was chaotic, with family and friends very upset. And he said he got the brunt of the questions from the family members and the friends. He said Scott never asked him any questions, y'all. Scorched. And he gave the order to clear the park for the helicopter about 8 to 8:30. Y'all, that would be so the helicopter's going to fly over to FLIR, which is for infrared scanning system, and any living being that's in the park, or even a body that hadn't cooled down a whole lot, it's going to show up bright white. Like I can use mine hunting in at dark, like stumps in the field that soaked up moisture from the sun's rays will still appear white, but they're not going to appear as white as a hog will or a deer will. So he's gave the order to clear the park so they can search it using the helicopter with the infrared system. And he said that Detective Brocchini arrived, and he briefed Brocchini at 11 p.m. His normal shift ended, but officers were ordered to search the park. Family members were asked to leave the park, so they left to go make flyers and posters. And at 12:30, Durfeld left the house, but Detective Brocchini was still there. And he said, that's it, that was my full That's the full extent of my connection with the case. All right. Again, y'all, you got to present this to a jury. You're telling a story. So he's dismissed. Prosecution calls witness number 23, Craig Wind of Modesto Police Department. And before Wind testified, Garagos, the defense attorney, requested a delay in calling the witness because of the animated presentation of the park the prosecution wanted to use, which was a 5-minute visual of an aerial photo of the park, zooming in on various locations in the park. Garagos said it was argumentative by nature and that he wanted time to study it so he could use it to point out his own areas of interest. Now, the judge, they opted out. They said, fuck it. We won't use this. We're not going to argue over it. It's not that important. But when ultimately he testified that he was in the helicopter with 2 other officers that searched the park, and they were using the FLIR. That's that infrared system I was to tell you about, to detect humans. And he said sometimes he held the floodlight, sometimes the other 2 officers held it. He said he was not the pilot. He said the helicopter was in the air about 8:30 or 8:35 p.m. He said within 15 minutes of 8:21, they were flying over the park and they got no human readings, and they were in the air for about 1 hour and 15 minutes or 1 hour and 20 minutes, right? All right. So there you go. And let's go real quick to the next one. Prosecution witness number 24, who is John Hodson of the Modesto Police Department, y'all. And he testifies at 3:45 a.m. on Christmas morning. When he finished his regular shift, Officer John Hodson, he was dispatched to Dry Creek Park to continue to search for Laci. He said that Hodson, he and Officer David Mullins went down into the park at the pump house and started searching from the pump house west along the path. Hodson took the riverside and Mullins took the other side. And they drove through with the police car with the lights on so they could see. I'm sure they had the blue and red lights on, but I'm thinking they're talking about using the spotlight that you see mounted on police cars. That's the light of the area like you would believe. But anyway, so they met Lieutenant Bruce Abel and Sergeant Scott Heller, who were working their way towards them. So they're doing a grid search. He said they then worked eastward from the pump house to the end of La Loma Park, where there is a public restroom and where the tennis courts were. Hodson said he checked the restrooms but found nothing. So they also searched the pump station and along the riverbank. And there he found some homeless shelters. He announced himself and the people came out to greet him, the homeless people. He searched their encampments and their property. He said they did complain that it was the 3rd time that night they had been searched because of people looking for Laci, right? Well, I mean, that is what it is. He said the encampments were within 1/4 to 1/3 of the mile west of the path that leads into the park from the Peterson's house. The encampments are just about 400 or 500 yards from the hospital on Scenic Drive where Diane Campos worked at. And Garagos pointed out the route from the Covina path into the park, over the footbridge, and down along the scenic back across to another footbridge into Kirwan Park and up the stairs to Ed Brooks and then to Covina. All right, neither here nor there. But interesting, again, they're laying it out. Everybody, it always starts out like this in a case. you're going to start out with the family members, who found the body or didn't found the body, and when's the last time you saw them, et cetera, up until the police, then they're telling a story, a narrative. The police get involved. Who was the first one? And then who was the second one, the third one? And anyone that wrote any type of report and any law enforcement, if you show up and you do whatever, if you don't write a report, it didn't happen, right? And that's because of trials like this. So any officer that had any kind of contact, did any kind of searching or whatever, they're going to write in their reports what they saw or didn't see. And of course, the defense has these reports ahead of time, and ultimately they're able to pick it apart if they think it's necessary. So, and I'm going to stop there for today because the next one is a very important one. And y'all, it's just crazy. And it's crazy. The trial, and you see these documentaries, and you hear this, and it's slanted this way, and you hear this one, and it's slanted that way. And it's crazy when you go through and you listen to the whole thing, and you actually hear what everybody had to say, and then you make your own decision. But I'm gonna tell you mine, and again, it's Scorched, period. And again, we wouldn't be, I hate throwing shade on police, but we wouldn't be talking about this shit had they done their job correctly. All right. So concluding this episode of Scorched, and I love and appreciate each and every one of y'all. Y'all go check out our TikTok. Funny videos on there mostly. And it's under Real Life Real Crime. And then, of course, the Real Life Real Crime community app. Go there first every day to answer things before I go anywhere else to all other social media. If you have case information you want me to look at, again, get everything you have and send it to woody@realliferealcrime.com. So if you don't have a bunch of stuff, I'm not going to be able to help you, y'all. I mean, I can read it, but you've got to try to put in the effort to get me the stuff. And in this case, I got started November 1. That the family has everything, right? And then they put in the legwork, and are still putting in the legwork. And I'm going to need legwork from the lifers. Not legwork so much, but we need your help in getting this case resolved the way it should be resolved. And I'm gonna save the name till we get close to the date, because I don't want them to know that we're coming for them. Anyway, love and appreciate each and every one of y'all. And LOPA, Louisiana Organ Procurement Agency, it's my jam. And I'm looking around trying to see. You don't have to, y'all, it's a nonprofit. You don't have to be from Louisiana to sign up to be an organ donor. People are dying every day waiting on organs, right? And they just can't go take your organs under, if you die, they can't just go take your organs no matter what. It has to be under a very specific set of circumstances. It's very rare that it gets done, but LOPA helps the process between the organ donors and the recipients, right? Even during it, after it, and everything else. And just the best bunch of people. And I've met a lot of people that are alive today because somebody like you took the time to go sign up to be an organ donor. And if you want to do it, you don't have to be from the state of Louisiana. You can be a lifer from Ohio, and just go to lopa.org, take 2 minutes, fill out the questionnaire, become a hero, give the gift of life and sight and all that good stuff that they do. And I'm Woody Overton, your host of Real Life Real Crime, the podcast. Until next time or ever, don't let me catch you down on Murder Bayou. Peace. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to and during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
And the wolf is at your door.